we get as many. Thank you, Greg. And Greg on my team is doing the recording and the slides, so you may hear us say, Greg, next slide. And we do post these a couple of days after the meeting happens. So probably Monday, Tuesday next week, you'll see this online. So why don't we get started? I'm sure we'll have some more folks joining. So I think I know everyone, but I'm Rosa Maimi, Director of Engagement and Membership. It's great to see everybody again. And as you know, this is our opportunity to get together with section leaders. We also have some folks joining us from student early career section reps. So we welcome you as well. I understand that you all have meetings that kind of surface similar information. So we thought we would combine forces here and invite you here. So welcome to you as well. So before I get into the agenda, I do want to bring on Amber Levy, who is our new VP of Affiliation, Engagement, and Membership, to say hi. So Amber.
Thanks, Rosa. Hi, everyone. I started in AGU in June, so it's been a few months, so I know I haven't had a chance to meet everyone yet, but it's nice to see you here today. And I just wanted to thank you for all the amazing work that you do. This is such a great group, and I'm so honored to be working with you moving forward. And I do hope that I'll get to meet a lot of you, in person in Chicago very, very soon. So you'll probably be seeing a lot more of me, but I do know that we have a fairly robust agenda today. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Rosa.
Great, thanks, Amber, and welcome. So let's look at the agenda real quick. Next slide. So we do have Eric, who's going to talk about travel grants and give an OSPA update. Pranoti is here with Waverly to talk about Mentoring 365 and section engagement. And also we've got folks from our policy team to talk about Liz and Brittany to talk about AGU science policy priorities and section engagement. They'll each introduce themselves. That's why I went pretty quickly. And as usual, we'll do open mics. So I'm going to turn it over. I think Eric is here. Eric, can you get us started?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I apologize in advance. I'm on the road, so I'm using hotel lobby Wi-Fi, and they're vacuuming right now too. So if you can hear that in the background, I'm sorry. But yeah, hey everyone, I'm Eric Hankin. I'm the Assistant Director for Career and Student Programs at AGU. So under my umbrella and my team's umbrella include things like travel grants, OSPA, and the various student programming that we have going on at conferences like the Student and Early Career Scientist Conference. Go ahead to the next slide. So I wanted to chat with you today, give a quick update on where things stand with fall meeting travel grants, and then dive into plans for OSPA for this year. So on the travel grant side, in mid-August, so August 10th, all of our travel grants associated with fall meeting closed. We had exceptional number of applications. In fact, we set records across the board. This is great in terms of the fact that this means people knew about the opportunities. We've got people applying. It's also a little scary because the previous records were set in 2019 for our Centennial Conference, where we had 30,000 attendees, and we know we're not going to hit that this year. So from a student and career programming side, this just shows the financial need that our folks still have, even on this tail end of the pandemic, and that there's this immense yearning from the student and early career community to attend conferences and be able to expand their network. So it's exciting that AGU has so many opportunities in the way of travel grants and a lot of funds too, but we're still going to be looking at about like a 15% success rate, all things said and done, which is we're just not going to be able to meet the need of all the folks applying this year. We do have one travel grant that's still open. That's the AGU Michael Freilich Student Visualization Competition. This is the only one that we didn't receive record numbers of applications for. This is an opportunity for folks to be able to showcase their data visualization techniques and be able to present on the NASA Hyperwall. So if you have students or you are a student who has some really cool data you want to showcase, this is still open. We've extended it until the 12th of October. It's a substantial travel grant. It's $3,000 to attend fall meeting, and then you get up to $3,000 for an additional opportunity later in the year. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So this is just a breakdown of the applications that were received for the student travel grant for fall meeting alone. We've received kind of a similar percent breakdown for things like the Berkner travel grant as well, where we have folks from all disciplines applying. But you can see there's a lot here, and a big range too, depending on the section itself. I'll let folks look at it for a bit. We did just finish up scientific review earlier this week. Not all of these travel grants go to scientific review. There is no way we could have had the 1,900 applicants all reviewed, right? This is and that doesn't even count the 800 Berkner applications and things of that nature. So what we do is we forward on the top 40% based upon diversity and financial needs scoring to the volunteer judges to be able to look at folks' abstracts and some of the other written answers to questions around, what will you get out of this meeting, things of that nature, and score them accordingly. Go to the next slide. So in terms of the timeline, we will be sending out notifications next week for all winners and non-winners for the various travel grants. Folks have a couple weeks to formally accept their travel grant. Want to wait until they actually hear back from AGU on their abstract acceptance, which happens in early October. We'll after the acceptances are received, we'll then go out with publicly announcing the winners, and we'll share this with the section leaders on the Connect community, just like we did last year. Folks receive their funds before fall meeting. This is an exciting thing that we started doing a year or two ago, and I'm glad that we're going to continue to do it, that folks are actually receiving their travel grants after we've confirmed their registration, as opposed to 10 years ago where they needed to sign in at the meeting and then we checked them off and they either received their check there or they waited a couple weeks to receive their wire electronically. It's awesome that we're able to provide it ahead of time. And folks will have will be recognized at fall meeting through things like the Student Travel Grant Appreciation Luncheon. And I know that some of the sections in your business meetings and receptions, you recognize your student travel grantees as well. Go to the next slide. The vacuum's pretty close to me, Rosa. Are you getting a lot of feedback? Or are you able to hear me okay?
I'm hearing you just fine. I'm not hearing anything, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay. $30 headsets better than I thought. Okay, so on to OSPA. I do want to pause though. Does anyone have are there any questions in regards to travel grants before I move into OSPA?
We do have Tanya, so why don't you come on, Tanya?
Thank you. I was just putting it in the chat, but I'll ask right now since you offered. We may have some section funds to distribute for travel grants. Would it be possible for us to receive, for section leadership to receive from you, the applications of sort of the top tier but non-recipients, so that we don't make people apply again if we happen to have funding for a few more? Yes,
I'm happy to provide that. Tanya, you were is it BioGeo? I'm trying to remember.
Education.
Education. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Tanya. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Be sure to send that to you. Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yep. I don't see any hands and I don't see anything in the chat. So Eric, why don't you keep going?
Okay, awesome. On to OSPA, so the Outstanding Student Presentation Awards, or I know the community calls it OSPA. So we are well into the, past the build and into the testing phase for the program this year. Once again, we'll be on the reviewer platform. This is the final year of the contract. We just started QAing the test site this week. Reviewer staff were doing it before that. Once abstract acceptances go out, students have the opportunity then to formally confirm or actually sign up to being part of OSPA. After we receive their formal acceptances of participating, the deadline is the 18th of October. The various files will then be uploaded into Reviewer. So the student participants, all of the coordinators, which you all are sending to me, thank you. Our liaison list that we've got through Confex as well, and anyone who during abstract submission said that they wanted to be a judge. All their information is uploaded into Reviewer. We then go into testing the live site around that same time. And in late October, we're going to have some volunteers help testing the live site as well. We anticipate that coordinators and liaisons will be able to enter the reviewer platform in the first week of November. Wait a week, have the judges enter, and then things really kick off in fall meeting. So folks will be, actively, judges will actively be filling out evaluations. Students, if they were attending virtually, are going to be able to once again answer questions from virtual judges and answer them on the platform and get feedback back. And the evaluations will be due after the holidays. We'll do the 4th of January. This could be extended if need be. And then throughout the month of January, coordinators and section leaders, depending on how your section functions, will be reviewing the evaluations and formally selecting the winners. And then we'll send out the notifications either the end of that month or the beginning of February, depending on how streamlined that evaluation and winner selection goes. On to the next slide. So OSPA coordinators, this is the big ask of section leaders at this point. We do need to know who your OSPA coordinators are. Thank you in advance to those at the bottom of the slide: global environmental change, geomagnetism, mineral and rock physics, SETI, tectonophysics, and VGP. Thank you for sending your coordinators. If you could please send me either at ehankin@aju.org, or you can just send it to ospa@aju.org. Both emails are at the top of the page here. Either will work. We need this information by the end of the month so we can get folks get the files over to a reviewer that they need to be able to upload and test to make sure that coordinators are able to access the system. Quick rehash of the responsibilities for coordinators. These are kind of the judge managers, super judge managers per se. They are the ones who are actively securing judges for students within your section, but they're also working with the liaisons to help the liaisons recruit as well. Depending on how your section functions, they're going to also be playing a major role in evaluating the judge feedback and choosing winners. Some sections leave that up to the leadership. Most have their coordinators do it. On to the next slide. So just a quick rehash of some of this I mentioned during the timeline, but this is the final year of our 3-year contract with reviewer. We have been working with their staff to improve upon previous 2 years on the platform and some of the big pain points that we've had. A big one here is that as a contingency, we want to make sure that folks aren't stuck with having to use the reviewer platform to be able to serve their functions, especially coordinators. So we're going to be one, ensuring that coordinators can access the platform well in advance, but we're also going to be providing reports through the Coordinator Connect group to be able to, so they can be able to reach out to liaisons and judges just using Excel and your email application to be able to recruit judges, that you're not having to go into reviewer to do this. During fall meeting, they will also be provided daily reports with updates on where student evaluations stand in terms of judge assignments. Another example will be the judge showcase page was incredibly slow last year on site. We didn't have this issue in 2020 because we're all virtual, but you get onto the conference center Wi-Fi and you try to look at a judge showcase, the showcase page with all the student participants on your phone, and you're trying to load it and it takes forever. We've been working with the reviewer to remove unnecessary information from that page and try speed it up as much as possible, knowing that folks are going to want to be able to peruse that on their phone on Wi-Fi to be able to select student presentations. And special thanks to Biogeosciences for this idea. We will be holding some Zoom calls in late October and November to connect the coordinators so that folks are able to share some best practices and challenges and solutions around things like how to recruit judges. And we're also going to have our customer rep at reviewer do some training too for folks who may be new to the platform. On to the next slide. So we do know there's going to be some pain points with OSPA just because of the nature of the beast. A big one here is going to be judge recruitment. We have an incredibly high % of the abstracts submitted for fall meeting are from students. We know there's a lot of students wanting to attend fall meeting from the travel grant application side too. And there's a really low barrier, good thing, but it does present challenges for OSPA for students to be able to participate in OSPA. During abstract acceptance, they're just saying, yes, I want to do this. So we anticipate there will be a lot of students, again, like there were last year, participating in OSPA. There's going to be a smaller % pool of judges than we've had in the year past who are not students. And so judge recruitment is going to continue to be an issue. We also know that just because you've got judges assigned doesn't mean they're going to follow through on completing the evaluations, or that those evaluations will be constructive. So providing, good judge training around this is what to expect from the evaluation. This is how we would like you to provide feedback. Don't just say great job, things of that nature. And we also can't assume that the reviewer software, despite all the work that we do with the reviewer staff, that it's going to be bug free. We've had bugs pop up every year, and even some bugs that have nothing to do with software. Amazon Web Services crashed the week before fall meeting last year. They, of course, are housed on AWS. So things of that nature can happen. We are building in contingency plans again this year, but a big one that's new is that we're going to have ways for volunteers to fulfill their roles without using the platform at all, using Microsoft Forms and providing links for people to be able to provide judge feedback if necessary, but also using the Connect group and daily reports that we'll be pulling as staff for coordinators and liaisons to be able to fulfill their role and know which student presentations still need judges assigned, things of that nature. On to the next slide. And so just some other things that are upcoming for OSPA and travel grants. So we will have a new program manager starting with the team on October 11th, who's going to be helping with OSPA, travel grants, and student programs. This is the same role that Carissa Lundquist had filled in years past. We're also looking to revamp OSPA significantly for 2023 and beyond. I mentioned that this is the last year that we'll be on the reviewer platform. So this is a nice opportunity in 2023 to be able to not only look at the new platform, but first we want to look at what are folks hoping to get out of OSPA. It is a mix of evaluations and feedback on student presentations, but also with a contest thrown in too. So we have some really great data that we've collected over the years from student and volunteer surveys. We'll be assembling a task force made up of volunteers, definitely some coordinators, some past liaisons, some student participants as well, in the coming months to start making some headway on helping us plan for this revamp. So if you know folks who may be interested, please have them contact me, or you can just send me their name and I'll reach out to them. And let me see, I can't see this last slide here, or the last bit. Looking at the timing and process of all meeting travel, user reviewer. Oh, I mentioned we had a ton of student applications for their travel grants. I don't anticipate that this will change. We've always received a lot of applications. It's also those that review period coincides with not a great time for volunteer reviewers. It happens in August with people finishing their field season, with semester starting. So we'll also next year be looking into the timing and process for reviewing travel grants and what makes the most sense for the program, for our students, and also eases burden on our volunteers who are already very taxed as it is. On to the next slide. So that's it. I talked super fast. I hope it was y'all were able to hear me despite some not great Wi-Fi and some vacuum noise in the background, but I'll happy to take questions now.
Yeah, and Eric, I know you're on the road, so I'll read you a few things that have come up in the chat during the latter part here. Mm-hmm. So Colleen Dalton asks, when will the OSPA coordinators receive the list of student presentations that need judges? I can't tell from the timeline.
Yep, they will be receiving that information around the same time that they are entering the platform. We can actually get it to them beforehand, but it will be late October, late October. They'll receive that information even in advance of being able to enter the reviewer platform.
Okay, and then we have one other question, and then I'll go to Margaret, who has her hand up. So in the chat, Donna Shillington asks, I'd like to request that the deadline be extended beyond January 4th. This deadline forces OSPA coordinators to be working over the holidays.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, well, we happy to extend it. We can't extend it too far, but I do understand that is incredibly close to the holidays. Previously it had closed the week after fall meeting, and we changed that in 2020 since people could access presentations for weeks past fall meeting. And we did receive some feedback last year. I think that we had closed it on like January 2nd, that was too soon. So I'm happy to extend. Okay,
great. And Margaret, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I wanted to amplify something that Eric said about having a Zoom call and sort of sharing some resources and ideas among the section coordinators, and to really encourage, if you could encourage your section coordinators to join, I think it'd be really helpful. Just briefly, at least for 2 sections last year, they had to completely cancel their OSPA. We were one. There's another even bigger section that did. And because we couldn't get judges for everybody, for all the student presentations, not even one judge per presentation. It just didn't feel fair. So Troy Magny, who's one of our coordinators, is here, and I'm hoping he'll speak up, like just to tell you one idea that we have that we think will fit in the rules, but we really want to share other solutions that people have and try to solve this, even if it's just for this year. It was a big blow to students who finally could come in person and show their posters or their presentations and not have those but work out. So I hope everyone will get coordinators to come. Troy, do you want to say what we're thinking?
Yeah, sure. I can just say real quick, thanks. I don't know how much leeway we have to actually make these changes, but I think given the extremely low turnouts, they're quite necessary. So one thing we think would help improve things is to have judges just select a session they're most interested in or several sessions and be randomly assigned a presentation. I think this alleviates bias in choosing who gets judged and people giving preference to some talks because they know the PI, for example. And this also creates less time for reviewers to peruse through all the presentations and choose which ones they want to judge. And I think that creates a barrier for getting judges because it just takes a long time to go through everything. So I think a random assignment would increase equity and increase quantity of judges.
Thanks, Trey. That's great feedback. I'll have to talk with our reviewer staff about what's achievable this year without breaking the platform. And certainly some of that is exactly the kind of feedback we want moving forward too. Obviously on the admin side, we love randomly assigning, right? But yeah, but thank you for that.
And Eric, you've got a +1 in the chat as well from Tanya on that. Janet, you have your hand up.
Yes, I also want to be a +1 for that idea. I think it's a great idea. And it also eliminates the issue because because many times students will either not register, and so you're left without a student, the judges are left without a student to judge, and you turn up there and there's nobody there or there's no poster online. And also for the students who might potentially change from on-site to being off-site. So, if you're just going to be assigned a random person, then if that happens after that, it's less annoying.
that on-site to off-site was a major problem last year, right? And no one's fault, if folks just didn't know, even up to 3 weeks ahead of time, if they were going to be coming, if they were allowed to come, what have you. So that was a major challenge. Fingers crossed that's not as much of a challenge this year, right? We have a better understanding of what the rules and regulations are going to be and what our own personal travel, how we feel about it, right? So folks will, during abstract acceptance, be able to once again, confirm how they are participating. So but we also know from their abstract submission too, how they are planning to participate, as opposed to last year where we didn't know that information until November. But thank you for that. That's great feedback.
Sounds good. Michael, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Since we're all just talking about OSPA, I found in our section the biggest pinch point is that very few of our session conveners actually consider the liaison role to be anything, and they just ignore it and don't offer any input into the process. So we have trouble getting judges because the section, the conveners who know best the people in their field just don't care, and there's no way to force them to. There's no means to get them to pony up, and we see this year after year. The same people don't really offer up any help.
Yeah, it's good feedback, Michael. We also know of there are liaisons who don't even know they've been assigned to be liaisons, right? We reach out to them with their duties, and they're saying, "Why the heck am I getting this?" Yep.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks, Erica. We've got a couple comments in the chat. One being it's a great idea. One thing that would have to be managed is conflict of interest. We have another comment. Really like the idea to have a mechanism for different OSPA coordinators to be in touch with each other to share strategies. And if folks have other comments or questions, you see Eric's email address here. And don't worry about writing it down. You can look for the posting of the recording later or early next week. But Eric, I want to thank you for joining us from the road and didn't hear anything in the background at all. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And thank you for the great feedback. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Eric. All right, well, why don't we move to the next? And we've got Pranoti and Waverly who are going to talk to us about Mentoring 365 and how to engage folks like you. So Pranoti, I hand it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon or good morning or good night, wherever you are in the world. It's lovely to be part of this conversation today. And thank you for letting us speak. My name is Pranoti Asher. If you could just go back to the previous slide, Greg. My name is Pranoti Asher. I'm also a longtime staff member at AGU. I'm the Assistant Director for Grants and Education Programs. And I'm joined by my awesome colleague, Waverly Lau, who is our mentoring programs coordinator. She and I are going to do a tag team effort here to tell you a little bit about this program and platform and how we think you might find this useful engagement tool for all the wonderful work and events and opportunities that you have. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So if you haven't heard about Mentoring 365, here's your cheat sheet. This is a virtual platform that allows pairs of students and early career professionals to be matched up with experts in our geoscience, earth and space science community. This matching or this pairing can happen as a one-on-one mentoring for 3 months or whatever time frame you choose. And this might be an opportunity for the mentee to get help on a publication or, you know, a career journey, or how do I apply to grad school, or whatever the case might be. At the same time, it's also possible for that mentoring relationship, that one-on-one mentoring relationship, to be a much shorter duration. It could just be a one-time. So you just need some help with your resume, or you just have, you know, a question about something, you know, that can, it just requires a one-time meeting. So in addition to these two traditional forms of mentoring, we also have another opportunity in this platform. It's called mentoring circles or circles. It's a type of group mentoring where you have more than a pair that is coming together to learn and talk and communicate and form community. And so these circles are typically folks who are interested in something that is sort of common, you know, for say, it could be science communication, or they're interested in a science topic, or they're interested in doing something together before, say, the AGU fall meeting or whatever have you. So again, just like the previous two types of mentorings, these circles can also be set up for defined amount of time. All of these can be extended. So, you know, your one-on-one mentoring can be extended beyond 3 months. You know, if you enjoyed your conversation, that flash mentoring that you had with the mentor the one time, maybe you decide that you want to be in a longer term mentoring relationship with that particular mentor. In the same way, the circles can also be extended. They typically last for 3 months, but it could be longer, it could be shorter. It's very, very flexible. So if you could go to the next slide. We want to just tell you a little bit more about circles. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Waverly, to just show us a little bit about circles, and then I will close it out. So go ahead, Waverly. We can't hear you, Waverly.
Hello?
Oh, yep, got it.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Sorry about that. So yes, once again, Mentoring 365 Circles is this peer group learning environment. So really trying to foster that peer-to-peer learning over a certain kind of topic or interest. So kind of the different capabilities of circles is the connection plan, which you can see here. There's a screenshot. And it's pretty much some tasks, some goals, and a few surveys that we have just to keep people engaged and make sure, give a few resources to even the circle lead or the mentor of the group to start facilitating discussion over whatever topic. In addition to that, there is a discussion board and the opportunity to create meetings. So what's great about both of those is that anybody in the group, anybody in the circle can create a post, anybody can create a meeting. So the circle lead is really there to facilitate that discussion, but they can bring in experts in the field to talk more to the members about maybe their career paths or whatever the topic might be. And especially with the discussion board. So we've recently had one on science communication. If there's some posts about, creating an elevator pitch. And so if some members wanted to start a meeting to practice their pitch, they can do so and invite whoever else from the circle to join that. It doesn't have to be the circle lead creating all of those meetings and such. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is kind of just a quick look about on what circles kind of looks like. The idea is that we'll have a kind of selection or menu of different topics that you can choose from. And these circles go on for about 3 months, but you can set this to go on for 6 months or even longer. And once the circles end, everyone who's joined that will still have access to whatever resources or posts were already in there. You just won't be able to post or start a new meeting again. Next slide, please. So I talked about a science communication circle. We actually did do a pilot circle that recently ended a few weeks ago. And so this was run by our AGU Sharing Science, Olivia Ambrosio. And she used this as more of kind of creating a bunch of discussion posts and then having at the end a virtual meeting to bring on some, again, kind of field experts in science communication to talk about their careers and their paths in science communication and what kind of things they've done to kind of utilize those skills.
Let's go to the next slide.
Next slide, please.
All right. So you're thinking, what's in here for me? I mean, I just heard a couple of things today, which I think could easily become circles. So for instance, I know many of you have in-person events, at the fall meeting. If you're planning to have a workshop or you may be having some sort of student event, if you're thinking, well, wouldn't it be great if all these students or all the participants in this particular workshop want to meet beforehand, have conversations, do some pre-reading, do some learning about, resources or whatever have you, you can start a circle. It could be a circle that ultimately ends up not in a virtual meeting, but in a real meeting at the fall meeting. Again, the discussion group would allow you to pose questions, people could share documents and they could even meet, prior to the fall meeting. I know many sections have webinars. Is it possible maybe to have sort of a pre-webinar meeting? If you're having a webinar about some science topic, is there a paper that came out that people want to read and have conversations about? So that could be another potential circle. I also understand that many sections have existing mentoring programs. Is maybe you want to use this platform to do sort of that mentoring that your section is doing and have it migrate into this platform. We have another functionality of this platform that's up and coming. Is called group mentoring. So you don't have that one-on-one mentoring, but you could have a couple of mentors that are have a mentoring relationship with 6, 8, or 10 or 12 students. So there are endless possibilities. I just heard, Margaret, you were talking about your biogeosciences section that is planning to do some sort of conversations around OSPA and training. That could easily be a circle in here. And just this morning, I saw in AGU Connect that there's a group that wants to do some sort of training or learning around the honors. What award do you apply for and things like that. Again, that could easily become a circle. So there are endless possibilities with this platform. And if you could go to the last slide, Greg, thanks. So if this is of interest to you, this sounds intriguing, we're very happy to connect with you and chat with you. And we'll definitely put our email addresses in the chat, as well as the link to the mentoring platform in case you're not familiar with it. And we'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Great, thank you so much, Waverly and Pranoti. Anyone have any questions? Raise your hand, put anything in the chat. I'll give a moment in case. Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I've used Mentor 365 before to do some one-on-ones, and I'm a bit unclear still about how the circles work and whether, let's say, the onus is on the mentor to float a topic as a mentoring topic, and then just over time have people who log in find that topic and join the circle, or is the intent that outside of the 365 system, a group has formed, and then you just migrate into Mentoring 365? Can you clarify?
Yeah, what a terrific question. So as Waverly noted, we've only done 2 circles. We've done one on careers outside academia that had about 50 folks that signed up for it. And the science communication circle that just ended had about 75 folks. So we haven't really opened it up so that you can just click and join any existing topics. We need folks to propose those. So we would love for you to be our guinea pig, if you're willing. If you have a topic, of interest or something that has come up a lot in your one-on-one mentoring, and you think, oh, this might be a great topic. Now, you don't have to be the expert. You can be the lead, as in start the circle, but you can draw in on the expertise of others, either in your section or in your own scientific community, to be those experts. Again, you don't have to have a formalized meeting or an event, right? It could just be a discussion thread. So the science communication circle was mostly discussion. They had discussions for 2 months, and they just had one meeting at the end. So a meeting is not required. So it can be anything you want it to be. So we'd love to chat with you, and we can brainstorm with you and help you kind of, figure out how you want to do this. Again, endless possibilities. This is a wide open palette. Anything you want to paint is possible here. So we'll throw our emails into the chat, Michael, so you can connect with us.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. We've got a comment question from Margaret in the chat. BioGeo could use this for our honors training sessions. Would it be possible to tag it as a BioGeosciences activity to make it easy for our section members to find it?
Absolutely. I think what we would create is just a specific link, and you could send it to your section, and people could join the circle. If you're interested in having it be inclusive and have other sections, then you can pick and choose, and we can post it through AGU Universe, or it could be posted through the section leadership community. Absolutely. I think I answered that correctly, Waverly, right? I think you can just create a link for the section and people will join it. They would have to fill up, they would have to identify their section as part of information that they put about themselves. It's just bare minimum. So then if you're interested in knowing how many people from your section came to it or joined the circle, we could certainly give you those reports.
Great. And we have got another question from Julie. Is this better than Slack or Teams? Good question.
I'll take this one.
Sure.
So this Circles offers a bit more of a targeted kind of experience than I think Slack and Teams does. I know in Slack and Teams, you can have multiple channels and you can have discussions, you can start video chats, but this kind of Mentoring 365 Circles, not only you can connect this to your one-on-one account, it's a very easy transfer, but it does offer that kind of more targeted mentoring experience with, this lead is really facilitating the engagement and discussion, and that's what it's meant to do. And it's once you're connected in a circle, circle leads and members can talk to each other, members and members can talk to each other, both within the circle and privately. So if someone, say, wanted to start a one-on-one connection with the circle lead or somebody they just met in the circle, they can do so by going to the kind of one-on-one environment, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both very much, Waverly and Pranoti, and please reach out to them. You've got their contact info here. And feel free to share this when this recording with others when we post it next week. So why don't we move on to our next group. So we've got Brittany and Liz who are going to talk to us about science policy. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm going to get us started today. My name is Brittany Webster, and I'm the manager of our Science Policy and Government Relations program. And I acted too soon, but I'm going to drop a couple of links in here that I think will be helpful as we move forward. And I'm joined today by my colleague Liz, who will introduce herself. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I want to start by talking a little bit about our policy priorities. So our policy priorities are really what we use to focus our advocacy work with Congress and the administration, and as we think about moving or being more engaged in international science policy issues. So I'm sharing here our current 2022 policy priorities. Funding for science, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in science, climate change and natural hazards, as well as protecting environmental and human health. So the first link I shared is our complete list of priorities. These are really just the headings, and there's more detail under each heading. And then the second link I shared actually is an invitation to you to please help us shape our 2023 policy priorities. Here in the US, we're about to have a big election. And so normally we take this moment as a time to really reassess our policy priorities. So I just shared a survey with you all that we would really appreciate your input and feedback on to help us kind of shape where are our memberships, because I think first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're representing the interest of our community and the priorities of our community. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that's one way you can get involved with us in terms of talking about our specific kind of policy legislative work. But another way you can get involved with us is we often have specifically congressional committees, but sometimes congressional offices reach out to us about feedback or ask for AGU's endorsement on a specific piece of legislation. So here are just a couple of pieces of legislation that we've actually weighed in on or provided feedback this year. And some of these bills have not yet been introduced or kind of made public, but we're always looking for experts really to help us kind of shape our input. Some of these things, they end up being really more detailed. And so it's not just, you don't necessarily have to be you don't have to be an expert in, legislation, or I know reading a bill can sometimes seem, it can seem like a barrier, but a lot of times we're just asking for kind of your opinion, but also to your general sense of like the community or an issue. Yeah, and so sometimes we've worked with specific sections on certain pieces of legislation, but sometimes it's just a wide call that we make, asking people to help us weigh in on pieces of legislation. We've also worked with sections before and kind of called on the expertise of our membership on some administrative actions. Specifically, we've been working with some members in our atmospheric and kind of more meteorological members on some FCC spectrum actions. We've submitted comments related to the diversity of federal advisory boards, scientific data, as well as climate change. So there's lots of issues coming up all the time. And it's always really helpful for us to know, who's interested in engaging in policy issues, and also what are people's expertise that they're willing to kind of share their input and feedback on. Next slide, please. And then also some really specific section partnerships that we've had. So I mentioned before, working with atmospheric sciences on spectrum issues, space physics and aeronomy. We've worked for several years on a Space Weather Research and Forecasting Act, but also we've worked on funding for heliophysics as well. We've worked with GeoHealth on these bills. We've worked with natural hazard and seismology on an earthquake bill. And then here's a link as well, which I also shared in the chat, in terms of sometimes we've reached out to sections and asked, as I mentioned, for their specific expertise on an issue, but a lot of sections have actually reached out to us because they're interested in either engaging on an issue that's really important to them, or just wanted our department to know that a bill or issue was important to them. For example, that's how we came to work on the Comprehensive National Mercury Monitoring Act, as well as the Space Weather Bill. And I would say, and now, nicely, these have turned into more long-standing partnerships, which is really helpful. We would love to be in more constant or regular contact with many more sections. Yeah, so both, we're happy to, we would love to be able to know, who are the best contacts in terms of when we're asked to provide feedback on bills, but also if there are bills or policy issues that you would like for us to weigh in on, we would love to know that too. Thousands of bills get introduced each Congress, and we're not always cognizant of all of them. Next slide, please. And a couple of more opportunities. So I mentioned briefings or exhibitions. We often host briefings on Capitol Hill. We help to co-run a Hazards Caucus Alliance on Capitol Hill, and we are often looking for speakers. I know this year, I think our focus was on volcanoes. We focused on tsunamis in the past. And so, we'll be looking for experts who are comfortable and interested in speaking to a lay audience about a particular issue. So we're always looking for speakers, but also congressional meetings. If your section or multiple people in your section are interested in going to Capitol Hill and meeting with legislators, we are always happy to kind of schedule and help you prep for those congressional meetings. And it doesn't have to be a part of like a formal event that we're hosting as a department. We're happy to do one-off congressional visit day events as well. I know a lot of scientists are often in DC, so if maybe you want to take an afternoon or a morning, we're happy to help set that up, but also help you prepare for those visits. Occasionally as well, committees will call us and be like, we're having a hearing on an issue. Can you recommend some witnesses, or who can provide some expert testimony? Who do you know, who is really good at science communication, but also an expert in this area? And so that's another way to get involved with us. And again, this is just about, for the most part, reaching out to us and letting us know that these are the types of opportunities that you're interested in. Yeah, and just kind of making that connection. We try to make that connection as best we can, but we don't always reach everyone. Next slide, please. And with that, I will turn it over to Liz.
Great. Thank you so much, Brittany. I really appreciate that. And a big thank you as well to Rosa and Greg for having us today to be able to talk to all of the section leadership here. My name is Liz Landau. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the Director of Science Policy and Government Relations at AGU. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different opportunities that we have to engage, and we hope that all of you will get involved. One of them is the AGU position statement system. So position statements are, as you can see here, we have both the sort of online version with the great graphic and also the printable version that someone could take with them. And these are essentially the statements that showcase where AGU stands as an organization on very important science policy issues. They tend to be very broad and looking at really high level issues, as opposed to something that might be more short term, very small scale, in which case we'd probably write a letter. And so we have two different levels of advocacy that we can do publicly for these kinds of important issues. So for these big statements, what we're looking for is documents that will last 4 years. So they need to definitely be something that is robust and can withstand that length of time. We're looking for something short, 2 pages or less. And we want it to be written in a way that's really accessible by everyone. These are used by policymakers, they're used by educators, they're used by the public, other organizations, and many AGU members and scientists use them as well. So they are really something that is the foundation of the outreach and advocacy and science policy work that our organization does internally and are incredibly important to both our organization and very useful to our members. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about a few ways that you can get involved in the position statement process. And you'll see I have a simplified version of the process laid out here as a timeline. And there are some gold stars there, which showcase all of the places where you all as AG leadership can get involved. There's a star at the very top, which is to denote the fact that you all can at any time submit a recommendation for a new position statement. If you think that there is a gap in our current process and our current statements and you want to add something, you think there's something that really is part of the AGU sciences that's not covered, we encourage you to submit something. I'm going to put a link in the chat here, which has the position statements on that web page, as well as a link to the form so you can take a look at that. So that's something that will hopefully be helpful to all of you. We do actually have a new position statement that we are about to launch, which is a GeoHealth statement, which we didn't have previously. So that's an example of a new statement recommendation that went through and will be created soon. So as you can see, the position statement committee is the entity within AGU that first makes a decision about which recommendations are to be made into statements and when statements need updates. When statements get to the point that they are being updated or being written for the first time and we have writing panels formed, that is also a great time for you to get involved. We need recommendations for experts in the fields, and we love to go to the section leadership to find those experts. And we also sometimes will ask some of the section leadership to be part of these panels. I do see there are a few people on this call who have been part of our position statement panels in the past, and I want to thank all of you for your service and for being part of that. It's an incredibly important and valuable part of the process. And after the writing panels have worked through this, there's actually a 30-day member comment period so that all of the AGU membership can review the draft statement, make comments, which can then be used to improve the statement before it's finalized. And so I would love to see all of you who are on this call taking your time to look over these statements when they are announced. It will go out in AG Universe, on our science policy, social media, communications, and our emails. So if there's any way that you can encourage your sections to also take a look at these and comment on them, that would be extremely helpful. After that, the comments are incorporated and the position statement committee gets one last review of this to make sure that everything looks good by them. If there's no other revisions needed, it goes to the council for a vote. I know a number of you are on the council as well. And so this is another time you get to review and make an important part of the process continue forward by voting. Then the board vote happens. And after that, the statement is officially adopted by AGU and we have AGU communications about it. This is another time that we would love to have all of you help promote this, particularly if it's a position statement in your area of expertise. Share with your networks, let people know that this is out and available so that they can use it. Next slide, please. So I did go ahead and put the link in the chat there if you'd like to take a look at our current position statements and see what is there and let us know if you have any ideas for additional statements. You can see the web page is shown right here and it shows a little snippet of the form there. You know, I will say because these are such broad statements and they're supposed to last for 4 years, we're really looking for those big overarching topics for these. So if you ever have any questions or concerns about what might be appropriate for a position statement, you can feel free to contact us. I put our emails in the chat there as well, and you'll see them again at the end as well. Okay, one more slide, please. So another thing that I do want to talk about, in addition to the position statements, is just getting the word out about AGU science policy programs. We have a ton of excellent programming that we put on. And of course, it's just hard to get the word out about everything that we're doing to all of the sections and all of our members. So if there's ever anything you can do to help us get the word out to your sections, we'd really appreciate that. We have lots of opportunities for early career scientists. We have things like our Congressional Science Fellowship, where you can work providing scientific input to a member of Congress for a year. We have internships in science policy for people who are thinking about that as a potential career path. We have opportunities to write blog posts on science policy topics. We have ways to engage with policymakers if you'd like to make those connections with someone either at federal or local level and talk about the key science policy issues. And we have fantastic programs like AGU's Voices for Science program or local science partners programs. And these are programs where we will give you lots of support, resources, and tools to be able to engage in science policy over the long term. And we have programs aimed at everyone from early career to, we have plenty of people who are retired who are part of these programs who are now taking the time to be invested in science policy. And so if you have any questions about any of these, we'd be happy to chat more about what the programs are like or opportunities. And if you could do one more slide, please. I'll just put up our email addresses if you'd like to contact either of us. So at this point, we'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has about getting involved in AGU science policy, or if anyone who's been on one of our position statement panels or involved in one of our programs wants to raise their hand and let everyone know how that experience was for them, that'd be great as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Thank you, Liz and Brittany. Are there any questions in the chat? I don't see anything. Hands raised, or anyone want to share any experiences, as Liz mentioned? All right. Okay, well, you have their contact info, and I'm sure they'd love to hear more from you. So with that, why don't we go over to open mic? And why don't we take down the slides so we can see each other if we want. So hi, everybody. Anyone have any comments for the group or questions or anything for the chat? Raise your hand. Anything, anyone? I don't see anything. All right. Well, I'm glad everyone joined us today. Oh, hey, Margaret, go ahead.
Sorry, I always have one. I don't want to keep you too long.
Oh,
But
no.
it's exciting to hear about the science policy and the Mentoring 365. And I think we are not, our members don't know about all these opportunities. It's hard to keep up with all the new ones, even year to year. And so I'd like to have a little town hall or webinar for our members. And don't know if maybe you could provide like a cheat sheet and then we can go get information. So it's not that we need all of you to come and present, but could there be some way of, just summarize, like just a laundry list of all these programs?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff here, don't we? So, and I see a +1. I mean, I think that, that's something that actually Amber, being new here, she may want to address this because I think she's getting underneath a lot of that too. I think that's something we can certainly do and surface a lot of these things. And one of the things is attending meetings like this, right? So we can share information not only about the programs that are here, but how you all engage with those programs. So you can learn from each other. So yeah, totally agree. Pranoti, you got your hand up.
I feel like there's a big disconnect for us between the 2 or 3 of us who attend this meeting and then 3,500 members.
Yeah.
It's just a big disconnect, and it'd be nice to have like this dense laundry list that we could share with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a cheat sheet we prepared. Just recently, a bunch of AGU staff went to a conference, and we were thinking about this very same thing. How can we pull things from different programs and put it in one page? So we actually have a beautiful flyer that I'll share with Rosa, and maybe when the notes or the links from this meeting go out, we'll add that, and you can get the high level of what that engagement is with a variety of programs. And so we got it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Liz has put something in the chat as well to help. So we'll continue to look at that and maybe for fall meeting. And Amber's put in some notes as well. So thank you for that, Margaret. Really, really good point. Anyone else? All right, well then I'll let you go. We'll see you next month, if not sooner, and we will invite the meetings team. They are actually on a site visit, all of them, I think, in Chicago. But I know that as we do these meetings and get closer to the fall meeting, you all will have some questions, so we'll have them there. And if there are other topics and I kind of make this plug every time, but if there are things that you want to hear about from us, meaning AGU, but more importantly from each other, drop me a line, because I'm always, soliciting topics for this meeting and want this to really work for you guys. So let me know, and thanks for all you do. And with that, I'll say bye.
Thank you.